The corridors of Westminster are trembling under the weight of controversy, with explosive revelations and fierce political clashes dominating the headlines. Angela Rayner has thrown down the gauntlet, insisting that councils meet unrelenting housing targets amidst widespread protests from local authorities. Simultaneously, Labour is grappling with a high-profile resignation over fraud, and rural communities are enraged over a contentious inheritance tax raid that critics claim could devastate farmers. Meanwhile, Lee Anderson's blistering accusations of two-tier policing have added a sinister layer to the turmoil, as threats against MPs expose cracks in the nation's law enforcement system. This is no ordinary week in British politics. These scandals, each more shocking than the last, have sparked a public outcry and put the spotlight on a political system stretched to its limits. Let's unravel the chaos and see who, if anyone, will emerge unscathed. Angela Rayner's ironclad stance on housing has ignited a nationwide firestorm. Tasked with solving England's housing crisis, she has doubled down on the government's mandate to build 1.5 million homes over the next 5 years. These targets are non-negotiable, she has declared, despite fierce opposition from councils across the political spectrum. Local authorities argue that the targets are a pipe dream, dictated by an algorithm blind to on-the-ground realities. Councils have described the government's flagship plan as impossible to achieve, citing strained infrastructure, limited land availability, and a construction industry already buckling under workforce shortages. These aren't just minor logistical hiccups, they're systemic barriers that render the housing targets a near impossibility. Yet Rayner remains resolute. "We've got a housing crisis in this country," she proclaimed on Politics Live. "I make no apologies for delivering the homes people desperately need." Behind closed doors, however, frustration is mounting. Councils feel abandoned, left to carry the burden of an ambitious scheme with insufficient support. Rayner has pointed to the £500 million allocated for affordable housing in the recent budget as evidence of the government's commitment, but critics argue it's a drop in the ocean compared to what's needed. Her determination is starting to alienate allies, raising the stakes for a policy that could define her political legacy, for better or worse. As Rayner fights to uphold the government's housing targets, Labour finds itself embroiled in a damaging scandal that threatens to overshadow its messaging. Louise Hay, the former Transport Secretary, has resigned after admitting to a decade-old fraud conviction. For a party that has positioned itself as a beacon of integrity, the revelation is a crushing blow. Rayner, in a show of solidarity, described Hay as an outstanding cabinet member and expressed respect for her decision to step down. However, the controversy doesn't end there. Hay may still receive a £17,000 loss of office payment unless she is reassigned within 3 weeks, a possibility that has sparked public outrage. Critics have labelled the payout an insult to struggling taxpayers, especially during a cost-of-living crisis. Rayner defended the move cautiously, stating, "If it's within the rules, I don't see why she shouldn't." But the damage to Labour's image is undeniable, with the party now scrambling to contain the fallout. Meanwhile, in rural England, a different storm is brewing. Heidi Alexander, the Transport Secretary, has come under fire for her defence of new inheritance tax rules that critics say unfairly target farmers. The policy, aimed at closing loopholes exploited by wealthy landowners, has been presented as fair and balanced by Alexander. She argues that only the richest estates will be affected, with couples still able to pass on up to £3 million tax-free. However, this reassurance has done little to quell the fury of rural communities. Farmers warn that the policy could push struggling agricultural families to the brink, threatening the viability of an already precarious sector. Tory MPs, particularly those with rural constituencies, are demanding a parliamentary vote, signalling fractures within the Conservative Party. Alexander, unflinching, insists that tough choices are necessary to address the country's financial challenges. "Those with the broadest shoulders need to make the biggest contribution," she said, drawing a sharp contrast between the current government's approach and the economic chaos of Liz Truss's short-lived premiership. But perhaps the most chilling revelation of the week comes from Lee Anderson, who has exposed what he calls spineless and pathetic policing in the wake of a death threat against him. The threat, posted on social media, declared Anderson's time was up and promised to track him down and kill him. Anderson revealed that he was only informed of the threat a month after it was reported, a delay he called unacceptable. Even more shocking is the police's decision to issue the suspect a mere caution, citing their autism and lack of prior convictions. Anderson has accused the police of two-tier policing, arguing that threats against MPs from certain political parties are not taken seriously. "It's absolute nonsense," he fumed, contrasting his case with that of Ed Miliband, whose would-be attacker was swiftly jailed for making similar threats. The Met Police, in their defence, stated that the evidence did not meet the threshold for prosecution. However, Anderson's criticism has struck a chord with the public, who see the case as emblematic of broader failures in the justice system. Members of Parliament from across the political spectrum are now raising concerns about their safety, and calls for an overhaul of parliamentary security measures are growing louder. As these controversies rage, the personal stakes for Britain's leaders are becoming painfully clear. Angela Rayner, who rose from humble beginnings to become Deputy Prime Minister, now finds herself at the epicentre of multiple crises. In a candid moment during a BBC interview, she reflected on the challenges facing young people today, from crumbling public services to stagnant wages. "You have to have a bit of luck," she admitted, but emphasised the government's commitment to investing in education and opportunity. Rayner's resolve is inspiring, but the cracks are beginning to show. Her uncompromising stance on housing, while bold, risks alienating the very councils she needs to implement her vision. Heidi Alexander faces a similar predicament, defending policies that have ignited a backlash in key constituencies, and Lee Anderson's fiery rhetoric, while resonating with voters, underscores a growing divide between politicians and the institutions meant to protect them. Even Kemi Badenoch, celebrated as the first black woman to lead a major UK political party, hasn't escaped scrutiny. Her recent comments downplaying the significance of her ethnicity have sparked debate, with some praising her focus on policy and others accusing her of ignoring systemic barriers. The tension reflects a broader challenge within British politics: how to balance representation with the need for substantive change. Amidst the chaos, one thing is certain: the political landscape is shifting. The housing crisis, cost of living pressures, and erosion of public trust are testing Britain's leaders like never before. Angela Rayner, Heidi Alexander, and their colleagues are at a crossroads, facing decisions that will shape not only their careers, but the future of the country. As the dust settles on this tumultuous week, the scandals and controversies show no signs of abating. From housing battles to policing failures, the stakes have never been higher, and the next chapter promises to be just as explosive as the last. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit like button and subscribe.